Hello and welcome back to the Introspect podcast. I am Brianna and we're going to be talking about safety today, and basically the idea of what happens when safety goes wrong. What happens when we're doing things in the name of safety, but the actual results of our actions do not provide us with more safety. So we all have free will. It's a great thing to be able to take literal steps in reality to earn ourselves more safety or secure ourselves more physical, mental, and emotional safety. Obviously, that is a good thing. But the problem arises when we aren't actually, so it's two things. One, we're not actually able to verify whether the actions we're taking are granting us more safety or not, whether we're really becoming more safe or we're just imagining or assuming we are. That's part of this problem. And two, we as a culture are increasingly defining safety more and more and more as protection from a higher power. In other words, there's this group of people, or there's this item, there's this thing outside of me that is granting me safety. So, in other words, this is codependence. This is when I talked about in a past video, our narcissist codependent political structure. If you haven't watched that, definitely watch that, because that video explains how we as individuals have our codependence issues and how that manifests on the public stage, in politics, in literally everything. So the problem with safety is when we're relying on other people to provide it, or relying on an object outside of ourselves to provide it. And in reality, that object is finite. It's limited. There's only so much it can do. Or in the case of relying on other people, they likely do not know what's best for you, and they may not even know what's best for themselves. So right now in this culture, we have tons and tons of people relying very heavily on other people's idea of what is true and what should be done based on that truth. And so it's like, in order to be safe, X, Y, and Z. Do this, do that, do the other. And most people, or many people, not everyone, many people are taking that as fact without any questioning whatsoever. So, okay, let me be a little more specific here. You're probably like, just get to the point already. I'm not strictly trying to be a conspiracy theorist here, or I'm not trying to say anything really specific about the government, just humanity as a whole, about illness. I'm not trying to say anything specific. But what I am saying is there's this movement towards sanitizing and sterilizing everything. And I don't mean this just literally. I don't mean I'm calling out people who use hand sanitizer or something. That's the very, very, very tip of this iceberg that I'm talking about. I'm talking about this cultural movement toward sanitizing everything. Honestly, I'm seeing it everywhere. I'm seeing, people stripping themselves of what makes them quirky, what makes them who they are, what makes them unique. We have to strip those layers off as soon as we go to work, to school. If we want to be respected in society, we have to sanitize the identity out of us. What makes us us? We have to just blend. So that's one example. Another example is, this kind of goes along with it, but like sanitizing our interactions so that they're very predictable. Like you walk into work and every day someone says, "Hey, how are you today?" And you say, "Fine." And they say, "I am also fine." That is not a normal, natural reaction or a normal, natural conversation. That is a sanitized conversation where the identity of each person is disregarded. There are so many examples of this pattern playing out. Like, since the spring started, I've been starting to plant things in my yard. And as I do research, it's like there are so many plants that are considered weeds, but we created the concept of weed. And so all this effort, all these products, all these things that we have to show up to the store to buy, it's all focused on eradicating what is naturally there. Eradicating it, we don't understand it, we don't like it, we don't want to look at it, we don't want to see, God forbid, any potential benefit of it. That's out of the question. We just want to sterilize, sanitize, throw some chemicals on it, and act like it never happened. Now, there is evidence, and I'm not going to go into this too much because I'm not an expert. I don't know anything more than the average person knows about viruses, immunity, illness, how people catch flus. I'm not an expert in that. But I will say that there has been some evidence of this, drug resistant, people are talking a lot about this, like drug resistant bacteria, drug resistant viruses, antibiotic resistant, and how, some people are actually concerned that all of this stuff like hand sanitizer and sanitizing everything and killing all the germs and bacteria is actually just creating these new resistant, like super germs or super whatever you want to call them, illnesses. And I think it's interesting because it's almost like evidence of our resistance and fear and like clinging to safety. Because as we resist illness, the unknown basically is what germophobia is really about, this like resistance to the unknown. I don't know what's on these surfaces. I don't know. I just don't know. I could be in danger. At any moment, I could be in danger. I better use hand sanitizer over and over and over and over. And this is basically obsessive compulsive disorder. And it is becoming very normalized. And again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't wash your hands. I don't know. I'm not an expert. So please don't send me hate mail. I'm not saying that you should like run around and cough on people and roll in the dirt all day. Like, I'm not saying be like super dirty all the time. But there is a point where we have to start to look at the things we're doing and say, well, what are the actual results in reality? Because we may have a set of intentions, like keep everyone safe and keep everyone healthy. But when we look at people's actual well-being, when we look across the entire nation or the entire world even of people, and we say, is their physical and mental well-being improving? Is it staying the same or is it going down? And with all of these hyper sanitation, sterilization practices, and I don't just mean recently, I'm not just saying everyone who's sanitizing things around the coronavirus are bad. I'm saying this, it's this increasing thing, and this has just really put it at its peak. So as we're doing all of these things, are we getting the results that we desire? Are we living longer lives? Are we having fewer illnesses? And I think if people were to really get honest, then I think a lot of these hyper safety behaviors are not bringing more well-being at all. They are creating more chaos, equal, if not more illness. People's immune systems are destroyed. We have new autoimmune diseases cropping up, and our ability to sterilize and sanitize everything is at an all-time high. So why are our immune systems breaking down? We began in a good place with this sanitization thing. We know that before sanitizing practices were a thing, disease spread really, really easily. People went to the hospital to get operations, and because no one knew about sanitization, there was a lot of death. There wasn't a lot of things weren't clean. There really was disease spreading rampantly everywhere. Today, we can't continue to think that simply. Things are not that simple anymore. There's not just this quick fix to our problems, because a lot of our physical and mental health problems are chronic, and they are degenerative diseases that accumulate over time. So when we adopt this mindset that A, someone knows better than I do about my health and well-being, B, someone else should control my health and well-being because I can't be trusted to do it myself, I'm just a stupid idiot, C, it is absolutely proven that if I do all of these safety measures, I will secure myself good health. All of these things reflect a level of immaturity and an inability to think critically, an inability to think in a more complex way about how mental and physical well-being are intertwined. Life is not that simple. We can't just sign our health. We can't just put our health in the hands of someone else, because those people that we are signing our health over to and saying they should make decisions about whether I leave my house, about how often I wash my hands, about if I'm allowed to do anything, go outside, we are signing away. Now, this is important. This is the entire reason I'm making this episode. When we do that, we are signing away our ability to learn and evolve as human beings. It is as if we are signing a paper that says, I will remain 5 years old forever. I will not progress to age 6 or 7 or 10 or 20. I vow to stay 5 years old forever. That's the equivalent of what we're doing. It is actually a form of disrespect for yourself, and almost like low self-esteem or low self-confidence, at least, to assume that we cannot control or have any real impact on our physical and mental health. We can't learn for ourselves, we can't research for ourselves, and that if we just keep buying the right products to sanitize and sterilize and do everything the news says, that we're somehow going to come out on top of anything. So this thing that we are calling safety is more like a regression into childhood. A regression into this place where we need to be cared for. We need to be literally engulfed in the thoughts, opinions, and beliefs of people who have power, people who have control. And right now, those are people who do not know any more than you or I. So they are just people who have more money. Like, we're in a, what is it called? Oligarchy. Princeton University did a study years ago, pretty much proving that the United States is an oligarchy, not a democracy. So we are far, far, far beyond the place of being democracy being everyone has an equal say, meritocracy being if you work hard, you'll achieve the most status, the most money. That is not what we are living in, and many people are still clinging to that delusion. And that's a real painful place to be, because it's strictly a delusion. We are living in an oligarchy. So what that means is whoever has millions of dollars gets to speak on television and gets to make laws and gets to decide what everyone else should be doing. And these are completely random people. A lot of times they don't even know as much as you or I know about health and well-being and everything. They are business people. So we now have and again, I'm not going to get too far into this because it's not the main point of what I'm saying, but hopefully you get the gist of what I just said. It's when we sign away our ability to think for ourselves and decide things for ourselves, we are signing away personal growth, personal evolution. This is not an overnight thing. We have been building up to this, sterilizing, sanitizing our human interactions. Many people, and I'm not talking about coronavirus, I'm saying years, before this, many people aren't even comfortable with their children playing outside in the grass, in the dirt. And if there's any truth that people are letting slip away right now, it's the truth that we learn and grow and become more safe based on what we encounter. If you are hiding, if you're cocooning yourself in this, quote, safety zone all of the time, and I mean this emotionally, as far as, how you're feeling, what decisions you're making, what you decide to do with your life, but I also even mean it physically as well. If you're keeping yourself in this bubble, you may be told that it's normal and that you're smart, even that you're safe, you're not an idiot, one of those crazy people who's risking their lives. But there is a point where safety does become dangerous, because it's not real safety anymore. At that point, it begins to morph into either an obsessive compulsive thing or at worst, a complete lapse into this delusion that other people that we've never met in our lives have our best interests in mind. When in reality, they couldn't possibly. They don't know us. And oftentimes they don't even know what their own best interests are. So this is the kind of thing that I expect to lose some subscribers over, or lose a few social media followers or whatever. But these things need to be said before this way of being gets so dramatically out of hand that people don't even trust themselves in any capacity. And we're already moving toward that point. Hopefully you are not, as the listener. I hope you're not moving in that direction, and I know I'm not moving in that direction. So if you want to begin to prioritize your own sense of safety, cultivating your own sense of confidence and capability, and the ability to affect change in your life in a meaningful way, and the ability to work through your problems and critically think and own yourself, own your life and own your experience instead of signing it off to someone else, then you are in the right place listening to this podcast. I have a newsletter. I have more offerings coming soon. I have the Shadow Workbook if you want to start working through your mental, emotional blocks and really start to experience this evolution where you start to step out of your conditioning and you start to figure out things for yourself. As scary as it may be, you may not be validated by anybody around you, but you can rest assured that you know how to navigate your own life. So thank you for listening. If you're interested in learning more about Exist Better, there are links in the description. If you haven't already, definitely subscribe on YouTube here so you can see when I post new things. I will talk to you next time.